want to welcome Linda Hollis. Linda, welcome. And for over 25 years, Dr. Linda Hollis has worked in the field of aging and behavioral health and nonprofit executive leadership. Her passion for aging stems from her work in various long-term care and community settings, both in Canada and the U.S. And Dr. Hollis received her master's in gerontology, specializing in Alzheimer's disease, an education specialist degree in educational psychology, and a PhD in psychology, focusing on human-animal bonding. Recently, Dr. Hollis has participated in the development and implementation of the Insights to Healthy Aging certificate for undergraduate students at the University of Arizona, and recently developed the new community certificate, Insights to Healthy Aging for Caregivers and Professionals. And both of those are online programs. So with that, we'll turn it over to you, Linda, and thank you again so much for joining us. And thanks to our audience for being here today, and take it away.
Great. Thanks, Scott. And thank you to Ollie for having me. And I'm excited to see the numbers turning out today, and especially across the nation and even Canada. I've seen someone from Canada, and I think it's very important because, like I said, this is a world's demographic shift, not just the United States, not just Arizona. So let's get started. Everyone should be able to see that.
Looks good.
Looks good? Okay, excellent. So are we ready for the world's largest aging demographic shift? Today, we're going to be talking about the United States as well as the world demographics, implication to the changing of demographics, and opportunities. Many times we hear that this shift, it's challenging, what are we going to do? But there are also opportunities that we can also look at. So 1998, what was going on in 1998? Google was founded. And now I bet everybody used Google today, but it was founded in 1998. In 2022, artificial intelligence is now priority. Cybersecurity, health, education. Let's see what else changed in the last 25 years. I'm gonna go with bread. Did you know that the national average cost of white bread increased over 117% in 25 years? Pretty significant. Healthcare increased cost 125%. So bread, 117, healthcare, 125%. Gasoline increased 283%. So our gas has gone up, bread, healthcare, our technology is skyrocketing. College tuition has gone up over 1,400% in 25 years. The Nokia cell phone in 1998, only 36% of US households had a cell phone. Now, and my most recent data was 2021, 97% of every household has a cell phone. So really you're wondering, why did I pick 1998? I could have picked 1990, could have picked whichever, but 1998 means a lot to me because this was the first time I was introduced to the population pyramid. And at the University of Arizona, my advisor, I was young, in my mid-20s, coming to Arizona to study gerontology. I was so excited. And my first class in aging and public policy, it was Dr. Ted Koff, and he was talking about this pyramid. And so I watched it and I'm like, wow, this is interesting. Okay, well, why is it interesting? Because in 1998, we talked about in 25 years, the population pyramid is going to get thicker. So here I am in 1998, but then in 2000, look at the difference of this population, and these numbers were going up. So people are living longer, we know that, or we were anticipating people living longer. And I looked at that and I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to do something because it's 25 years away. Well, I'm going to show you some other population pyramids. And this one is the United States. So the last one was the world. This is the United States in 1998. Okay, I'm sitting here. This is the baby boomers coming up, right? Look what it was going to turn into. Again, increasing. This pyramid was no longer a pyramid because of because folks are living longer, aging, healthcare. And so in 1998, only 12.7% of the US population was 65. In 2023, 17%. So over 5% increase. And again, I was this young student coming into the field of gerontology wanting to make a difference. So now we even look more in or further ahead into 2035. That is only 12 years away. And something significant that I want to share with all of you, for the first time, now we're going back into the United States because I'm kind of showing you the world and the United States. So I will clarify which one I'm talking about. But in United States, for the very first time in the nation's history, we are going to have folks 65 and older. They are going to outnumber youth 18 and younger. That is a significant turning point, and it's only 12 years away. And then again, we go even further. In another 27 years, we are going to see significant changes, and the millennials then start coming up higher because that's the second largest demographics that we'll talk about in a second. So I just kind of wanted to show you this. Here's just another chart, and before we get into the solutions or opportunities, this is the United States in millions. We're looking at how the 0 through 17-year-olds, look how standard, this how stable that's going to be right there. And this does say a lot that we're going to talk about. This is pretty steady. If you look at 85 and older, look at this. Look how much it's growing. Where we know in the 1920s, even the 40s, folks weren't living up to 85 years old. So again, significant numbers in what we're looking at. So why I'm sharing this, because we are already in a multi-generational society. And this is, again, just another image that I want to talk about. We are looking at 5 generations now. Actually, we're looking at 6. The Alpha generation is the very youngest. That's what they have called folks born after Gen Zs. So I want to talk about this. We're looking at the traditionalists, also called the silent generation. The youngest is about 77 years old. They were dedicated, hard workers, respect for authority, family focused, disciplined, responsible. Again, the youngest being around 77, that fits this section. Then we have our baby boomers. We all know baby boomers, and they are a very large group. And these were the babies born after the when families were reunited after the war. And we're looking about the youngest around 58 right now. And by the year 2030, every baby boomer will be 65 and older. So again, in 7 years, the baby boomers will be older, over 65. Baby boomers, some characteristics from them. They question everything. They want to make a difference. Anything is possible. That's how they think. They believe in equal rights and opportunities. They live to work. They're involved in the communities, growth, gratification. They live to work, and we'll talk about that. Live to work. They say spend now, worry later, and loyal to employees or employers, sorry. So that is our baby boomers. Again, I was talking to Scott earlier in the week, and I said that we can talk about this topic for hours and hours, but I know that we're only here for 1 hour, so I want to respect everyone's time. But so here's the baby boomers. This is what we're looking at. Then we have our Gen X. They are this group. They're often called the sandwich generation because they're between the baby boomers, which is a large demographic, and then the millennials is another large demographic. So they're the sandwich generation. They've been also called the latchkey kids. They're independent, ethical, they have high job expectations, they're highly educated, balanced, value diversity, and the youngest is about age 42. Then we get to this is the yellow in here, that is our Gen Y. Gen Y is also called the millennials. The youngest is about 27, very tech savvy, technologically savvy. They have high self-confidence, highly competitive, like personal attention. At this point, they have been noted for the most educated generation, and everything is now. That is one of their qualities. And so in a strong sense of entitlement. And then our Gen Z is in here, and they are just getting to adulthood. So not much has been researched and talked about, but we do know that this is the first generation that they have all, for the most part, had technology. And as they grew into their 5 years old. So again, why am I sharing this? Because this is a society that we are interacting with 5 generations at any time, and to see the differences. And again, this is not, we know that not every person is the same, and not every Gen Xer is one way or baby boomers one way, but we, through the research and findings, we're looking at some commonalities. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a short video on what a multi-generational society looks like. And this is focused on healthcare, but it actually covers all aspects, and it is from the World Health Organization. So let's get my mouse.
The average lifespan of an individual has increased by 20 years in the past 50 years alone. Today, there are 6 different generations coexisting, and each has unique views about the society in which they are living. These generations perceive, seek, understand, prioritize, and obtain health in different ways. Despite their unique characteristics and perceptions about health, they are more interconnected than ever, and their individual and generational decisions impact the intergenerational dynamics of the society and influence the population health trajectories. The multi-generational composition of our society provides opportunities for intergenerational collaboration and to put in place novel interventions to build a strong and a more cohesive society, fostering generational empathy and promoting well-being for the community as a whole.
So why does this matter? We've talked about the shifts, the demographics. We've, like I said, that I saw it in 1998 with my bright eyes and ready to make these differences. Yet we're going to talk about how far we have come. But before then, I want to talk about, so why does multi-generational society matter? It matters for several reasons. One, I guess, piece that I want to share is older adults are not the same. For years, we were doing developmental psychology and looking at milestones for children and adolescents and adults, but the earlier years, it very seldom got to end of life. Some theorists have, and that again is a whole nother lecture, but often we say once you hit 65, everyone's the same. Well, it is absolutely not the same. And there is no typical person. Often we put the older adults into three categories: youngest old, middle old, and oldest old. And that helps sometimes with like research and putting them into cohorts or things like that. However, even within the youngest old or the oldest, there are all very different. So that is one thing I really want to get across, and I'll talk to anybody who will listen, that once you hit 65, you are actually more heterogeneous than groups and cohort and generations and cohorts younger. So I want to share that. And again, like I said, there's a society of 5 generations. And like the video showed, it was a little bit more on health, but the perceptions working together, like this is a unique opportunity. And I found this 3-question survey, and I wanted to share with you just to show how different generations view aging. So here we are. There's this survey. It was done by the United States Truist organization. And we see 3 questions. At what age does youth end? Look at these responses: 31, 31, 40. Okay. At what age is prime life? Baby boomers are saying 50 is prime. Gen X, 47, millennials, 36. At what age is someone old? Baby boomers, 73, 65 for Gen X, and then 59 for millennials. That is significant difference in these answers. And it will affect how we work together and how we grow together and interact at work, wherever that is. So what are we going to do? We need to understand aging. We need to understand what is fact and what is myth. So we're going to take some time and we're going to go through a few questions. And I want you, if you have a pen and paper next to you, I want you to write down, if you agree these following statements, there's going to be 10 of them, are a myth or a fact. So, and if you don't have a pen and paper with you, just think about your answer. And we're going to go through each one. We need to understand aging. Depression and loneliness are normal in older adults. Myth or fact? Depression and loneliness are normal in normal adults. The answer is a myth. And this is because many older adults continue to work, volunteer, be caregivers. They're actively involved in their communities. They have positive interactions with friends and family, social networks. And actually, one thing I want to share, as we age, it is proven that quality of relationships increase. Sometimes quantity does not, and as we have our social circle, and some folks may die, but the quality of the relationships are much more satisfying in older adulthood. And there is actually no evidence of increased depression in older adults. Depression is not part of normal aging. And so we always have, or not always, but we have these relationships that will, it's more of a proactive a factor, I guess, or protective factor. So with that though, I do want to share one thing is chronic loneliness is a concern in society in older adults, and that chronic loneliness or chronic isolation has the same health effects as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So chronic loneliness or isolation has the same health risk as smoking 15 packs a day. But in general, depression and loneliness are not part of aging. It is very difficult for older adults to learn new things. Myth or fact? It's very difficult for older adults to learn new things. The answer is absolutely a myth. It is over that when people say, and I can't even say it because it's very ageist about can't teach new tricks to someone. It is absolutely a myth. Sure, learning performance may decline, but all ages can learn new things. And with extra practice and time, older adults are learning. And many of you are lifelong learners being part of this presentation today. Older adults should avoid exercise. It is because they risk injury. So is that a myth or a fact? Older adults should avoid exercise due to the risk of injury. Everyone got that? Okay. It is also a myth. It is necessary that we continue to exercise and build strength as we age. And it actually, the inactivity is more to blame as we age regarding the ability to do something. So people say, I'm scared of falling, or different types of reasons, which are absolutely true. And there is a fear of falling, but what can you do to build your strength and exercise in a safe way? Because it is definitely beneficial for our aging bodies. Our personality changes as we age. What do you guys think? Our personality changes as we age. Another myth, that it does not change. It relatively stays stable as we age. And again, the ageist term like grumpy old man, or older folks are grumpy. No, they may be, but they were probably grumpy when they were younger as well. So note that our personality does not change. Older workers cannot work as effectively as younger workers. Older workers cannot work as effectively as younger workers. This is, everyone got their answer? Also a myth. It has shown that folks, older adults in the workforce, have lower turnover rates. They're less absent from their work. They have fewer injuries than their other, I guess, colleagues, and that they are loyal, dependable, emotionally stable workers. So that is a myth. Men 65 and older face the highest rates of suicide. Again, men 65 years and older face the highest rates of suicide. This is a fact. And it has fluctuated a bit through the years in the numbers, but I found in 2020, all the suicides of the United States was about 46,000, and about 20% were older adults. So they're looking at reasons, some loneliness, chronic illness is one for sure, financial troubles, cognitive impairment. So that was from the National Council on Aging. Most older adults live in nursing homes. Most older adults live in nursing homes. An absolute myth, 5% or less are living in nursing homes, folks older, 65 and older. So that is not true, and this is again in the United States. Most older adults are quite capable of safely operating a motor vehicle. Most older adults are quite capable of safely operating a motor vehicle. Absolutely a fact. There's some changes as we age that may interfere with driving, and that could be a visual impairment, some motor impairment, or cognitive impairments that may deter older adults from driving. But actually, that the good news is that older adults are more likely to have safer driving behaviors than any other age group. And that is mostly because they are cautious. They may drive slower, but they are not as many accidents. Most people are set in their ways and unable to change. Most people are set in their ways and unable to change. If you've ever heard a loved one or someone saying they're always like that, or they're not going to change, it's a myth. People can change, and they have. Their older adults have become or do become stable in their attitudes. It's clear that they can change. Often it is as they adapt to various events in their lives, like retirement, widowhood, etc. So last one, and then we'll get moving here. All medical schools require students to take courses in geriatrics or gerontology. So we know we're talking about the changes in our demographics, and here we are. It is a myth that I believe 76% of med schools have an optional rotation, and a little over 25% have a mandatory course or rotation for their med students. This is pretty significant, and we will learn about it more as we move through the presentation. So, how did you score? Did anyone get all of them correct? And what were your surprises? I want you to think about that, because what I asked you, understanding aging, is so important, because we have to stop with the stereotypes in order to be this cohesive multi-generational society. And so how does the understanding help us with an aging society? And what are we going to do? What are the factors, the biggest implications from this demographic shift? We find that the biggest implications of this aging society is the economic implication. And that is, we talk about Medicare, we talk about Social Security. Right now, I believe it's 26% of our entire federal budget, just Social Security and Medicare. The implications of our aging society is our workforce patterns, of retirement and individuals and older adults working longer, family functioning, caregiving is key, the ability for governments and communities to provide adequate resources, and then prevalence of chronic disease and disability. So these implications actually come from the National Institute of Aging. They're saying this is what we're faced with and will continue to be faced with. Now, for the purpose of today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about workforce and family functioning and caregiving, because actually I teach in my classes, I teach on aging. I'll teach a week just on workforce, and then I have an entire class on caregiving. So that's how important I believe that workforce and caregiving is in our society. So let's talk about healthcare. As we know, like I said, Medicare, the dollar's going up, healthcare is extremely important and will continue, especially folks over the age of 85. So our healthcare, we're looking at high costs of healthcare, our fragmented healthcare system, and the World Health Organization does not just say the United States having a fragmented healthcare system, but other countries, as we are looking at the demographic shift. And again, our workforce in healthcare, that is key, because we are looking at the need for healthcare, the use of healthcare, and one of the questions we're looking at is there going to be enough workforce to care for the aging population? So with that, when we talk about aging population and healthcare, families will play a key role in this healthcare shift. As the demographics change, families will be more involved with healthcare needs. So I want to talk a little bit about family caregivers. Again, I teach an entire course on this, and we don't have time today, but I just wanted to show you this visual. And so AARP and the National Institute or National Alliance of Caregiving did a research report, and I will have the links for you on this report. And they looked at caregiving throughout the United States in 2020 at older adults, caregiving for older adults, as well as a child with a disability. But with that, I wanted to share that the majority of the prevalence of caregiving just for older adults. Let me use my little laser pointer. Here we go, right here. This was the number of Americans providing unpaid caregiving for their loved ones. But for older adults only, this was 16.6%, and it went up to 19.2%. So still the projection was there. I want to also focus on this little piece here. Who are the family caregivers? The majority here were baby boomers. So I believe it was 34% of baby boomers said that they are a caregiver to a loved one. 7%, this little piece right here, were the traditionalists. So the kind of the oldest old, probably caring for a spouse. And then we have 29% of Gen X, 23% of millennials say that they are caregivers, and then 6% of Gen Z. Like I said, this is, you will have a link for this, and actually an executive report as well I will provide to you. Some things to look at that has not changed much is women tend to be the caregiver more than men. We focus a lot in my caregiving class about work and financial impact. The financial impact that caregivers deal with is incredible, and especially with the workforce not being as flexible in their being able to work as well as be a caregiver. It has changing. We're looking at policies, we're looking at advocacy. One, how can we pay family caregivers? Because right now they are not paid. And then two, how can the workforce keep good workers as well as recognize their responsibility as a caregiver? So I wanted to just share that, but it is a very good study and executive summary of this caregiving in the United States. So with that, with this healthcare, we're watching healthcare, we're watching caregiving. Most years ago, United States was not participate in intergenerational or multi-generational households. Did they? Absolutely, but not as much as like Japan and other countries. But in a recent study, we found that 1 in 4 Americans actually are living in multi-generational households, which means that they are 3 generations or more within the household of the generations that we spoke of earlier. Hispanic Americans are 45% have said that they, the multi-generational households, they identify with being Hispanic. 33% of Black Americans say that they are living in their multi-generational household, and then 19% Caucasian. Now, this is an important slide here because the number of Americans living in a multi-generation household has quadrupled in the past decade. What was happening here in 2000? Let me get my little pen out. Right here. Yeah, it's called COVID. And people were living together for various reasons. And it was one, caring for an older adult in the family, childcare was another one, and financial impact was another reason. I do have this report as well, and I'm happy to share it with you all, and you can read the full report. But again, it says here, among those living in the multi-generational household, 57% report they are continuing to do so because of the pandemic. So, you know, there's still going to be over 40% that will go back. So I just wanted to share, because this is part of this demographic shift, the caregiving, the multi-generational households. Next, I want to talk about the workforce. And sometimes I feel like I'm jumping around a bit, but again, these are probably the two most, the most time I spend, I guess, working with students is now the workforce. We have a unique dyad, and this will continue. The unique dyad is this. The workforce is older. They aren't retiring when at 65 or 62. Their older adults are in the workforce longer. Yet, this dyad is the concern being because of this demographic shift, we're not going to have enough workforce, and that's the younger individuals, to fill the positions. So that's that unique dyad. Here we're saying, well, we want, and some people say this, but have younger people fill the positions when you're a mandatory retirement, but yet the concern is we won't have enough individuals to fill, especially, like I said, just in 12 years, it's going to be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 18. So as the youth become into the workforce, we're just going to have more people over age 65. So just wanted to share that. That's that dyad. 5 generations make up the workforce. This is the first time ever. It has not been seen before. Like I said, people are working longer, going back to the perceptions of aging and understanding and all being together in the workplace, especially because each generation works for different reasons. And I kind of mentioned it when we were talking about each generation. It has been noted that millennials want to work for the purpose. They don't want to work for a paycheck. They want personal development over satisfaction. They want to coach. They want to engage in work performance. They want to talk about strengths, not weaknesses. They want to have a life, and their lives are not determined by their jobs. That's millennials. But it's a little different than what we shared with the baby boomers, with the Gen X. So it's that whole dynamic we're going to be seeing. And then with that, it goes back to understanding aging, because ageism in the workplace is pretty rampant right now. And it probably because of the 5 generations and the misunderstanding of aging, but ageism goes both ways. And so I want you to know that older adults can be ageist towards younger people, and vice versa, because ageism is a prejudice or discrimination on the grounds of a person's age. So it's just not older adults. We're being ageist against older adults. We could be an older adult saying this person's just out of college, they don't know what they're doing, they're, things like that. So I just want to make that clear. But it is very prevalent against older adults. So older adults face discrimination in the workplace based on age. This was a report done, and an AAR report actually, and it was AARP members, and they said that they've been faced with workplace bias, and then age discrimination is common in the workplace today, and that was 93%. So it's pretty significant. Right now, I'm just have a little video to share about the workforce and ageism in general. Here we go. Okay.
So what's this all about?
Keshet games. I'm too old for this.
You just want me to say what people say about me.
Weird question, I guess.
My teacher says you'll grow out of it. It's just a phase.
It was never a phase. I never grew out of it.
I guess I'm too reckless, I don't know.
People like to talk very loudly to me.
They say I don't think things through.
You're looking still good for your age.
I'll figure it out when I'm older.
You are having a senior moment.
When the focus is on my age,
Life seems to get a little bit harder.
It feels like I'm not given a chance.
I need to keep up.
Or get out of the way.
I lack experience.
Or too much experience.
I'm baggage.
Only weighing people down.
Looking at my age,
Like it is a disease.
where I work, no one takes me serious.
It makes me feel powerless.
And it hurts.
When people see only my age.
Like we said, that ageism, or I said earlier, ageism goes both ways. And the United Nations, we're going to be talking about some of their solutions, but they're focusing on combating ageism as one of their strategic plans or goals. So getting back to the workforce, again, ageism is rampant, and I want to share that it's not only within the workforce, because people are working longer, the 5 generations, but it's the people providing services to us in the community. And we'll be talking about that in a little bit, but it's so important that we know my goal is to combat ageism, to share facts about aging throughout all organizations, through all companies, because we, as older adults, will be consumers, and the workforce needs to be not only within their own company, combat ageism, but also to the consumers. So I just really quickly wanted to show this slide before we jump into opportunities. The 15 fastest growing occupations in over the next, 8 years now. Look at them. Nurse practitioners, lobby attendants. So, and I'm showing this slide because to me, it's more important to look at, as an older adult, what am I a consumer of? Will I see nurse practitioners? Will I go to the theater? Will I go to restaurants? And how will I be treated as a consumer? And because of this demographic shift, we need to be educated and understand aging in all of our careers and in our jobs. So I just kind of wanted to show you that a brief slide. But really, let's get into opportunities. What are we going to do as a nation? What are we going to do as a world as we see this demographic shift? Excuse me. Well, Forbes says, cut government spending for older adults. That's a solution. Continue to increase government spending and borrow money to fund it. Solution. Raise taxes to finance the growth. Okay. Or we can respond to one of the top 3. Okay. Thanks, Forbes, in 2019. Well, the National Institute of Aging, part of the Department of Health and Human Services, says we need to understand the dynamics of aging. So over the next 5 years, our strategic plan, and now it's going to be only 2 years, we want to improve the health, well-being, and independence as adults as they age, and we're going to support research. So that is what the United States Department of Health and Human Services want to do. They want to better understand the biology of aging, personal, interpersonal effects. They want longitudinal studies. They want to put money and support the infrastructure of high quality research, which I am very proud of the University of Arizona, and especially our psychology department has been doing some great research in aging, but we're 2 years into that strategic plan. So let's see where we are. The United Nations, they are saying, hey, we have a 9-year plan. So up until 2030, we want to build age-friendly environments. So we want to focus on social determinants of health. We want to look at physical layouts, mental for cognitive impaired individuals. How can we create these friendly environments in order for older adults to live their lives with dignity? They want to combat ageism, and that was one of the videos I showed, that they're wanting to work on how we change, or actually change how we think, feel, and act towards an aging society. In one of my classes, I have my students actually go to a greeting card store and look at the cards, either the birthday cards, retirement cards, and they write actually paper on what they saw and how they felt and what it means to them. So for me, getting the word out, again, ageism and the greeting card stores are one of the worst places for ageism, actually. Next, integrated care. United States, we're doing more integrated care. Some of the developed countries are doing better at integrated care. And then long-term care, they want to focus on their strategy in building appropriate long-term care, affordable long-term care, having it more of a universal health coverage. They want to look at quality of long-term care services, and as well as the workforce in long-term care services, and get them properly trained. So that is where we are with opportunities. So I want to go back to 25 years ago when I came to the University of Arizona to study gerontology. That I had, like I said, these bright eyes. I was excited, I was young, and I wanted to change the world, and I wanted to make a difference in the field. So what happened? I look at where I am today and I said, has anything changed? We have been seeing this demographic shift right in front of our eyes, and these projections, which were accurate. Has anything changed? Well, the price of gas has changed. The price of bread has changed. Cost of healthcare has changed. But I can finally say over the past 3 years, we are moving the ship. And it takes a long time to move the ship, but we are starting to move it. I am optimistic that we will continue down this road by just seeing the strategic plans from the World Health Organization, the National Institute of Aging. So there is some shift, but what can we do now? What can you and I do as we look back and look ahead at the demographic shift? Well, like I said, we have to understand aging. We have to start with ourselves. We have to be an advocate. We have to not fall into ageism and the myths of ageism and the myth of, oh, that old man's grumpy because he's old, or that driver can't drive because they're old. All of these things, we need to make that change within ourselves, understand aging. And so what we've done at the University of Arizona, our goal was to make that change and keep shifting the boat. And so we developed, and like Scott mentioned, this is actually my second career. My first career was in nonprofits and management and executive leadership. But coming back to the University of Arizona has been key, specifically for these two certificate programs. The Department of Psychology has been wanting and working towards these certificate for a few years now because they saw the need. They're like, we need to educate folks on the power of aging and for me, the beauty of aging. So our two certificates are Insights into Healthy Aging, Healthy Minds, Brains, and Lives. And this certificate is for undergraduates. It's open to all majors. It's a 12 credit, so 4 classes. And we prepare career readiness skills as well as interact with older adults. So I want to take some time to talk about this. When I was in a CEO of an assisted living, we would have case managers or folks that had a degree and they had the skills for the job, but they never talked to an older adult before, or maybe their older adult was their grandparents in their lives. So coming back to the University of Arizona and saying we need a certificate where our undergraduates are actually talking to older adults. So we've developed mentorship programs. I have them interview older adults because they understand that we need to talk to older adults and not just believe or have our stereotypes. So when they come out of their undergrad, they are ready to actually be in the workforce. They have taken assessments about stereotypes and what facts are and cognition and dementias. We have a full class of dementia. We have a class on caregiving, as I said, relationships, the workforce. So they get an idea, and we have actually been quite successful with this certificate. And in one semester, I believe we have 10 undergraduate students. And so I'm very excited that we are educating folks in aging so they'll be prepared for the workforce. And again, it doesn't matter if they're in marketing, in healthcare, or psychology. What they learn in the certificate builds their knowledge. I say, for example, HR, human resources is a great field that people should know and take classes in aging because of, like we talked about, workforce ageism. Our second certificate is Insights into Healthy Aging for Caregivers and Professionals. So this certificate is for community learners. They are not registered at the university, enrolled at the university. It's 35 hours. It's fully online. It's flexible learning. You have anywhere from 2 to 6 months to complete the 35 hours of learning. We have CEUs available. Another thing I talk about in the certificates is mental health and aging. That is something that many people do not talk about. And as we look at the suicide rates, as I mentioned before, it's very important to understand mental health in the field. So the University of Arizona, we're kind of front of the game. They've been working on this for several years. They're both certificates are now fully implemented, and we are getting a lot of excitement and enthusiasm around it. And that's where we have started. That's where I can start. That's where I want you all to start, is to understand the demographic shift, understand the workforce, the family, and what that shift is going to happen. It is happening. It will continue to happen, and what we can do and what we can do better. How can we do it? So I just want to leave you with one more slide, and then we'll be open for questions.
What are you doing here? You're too old for this.
Old. Old?
Old.
I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was.
Too old to start a rock band.
Women aren't sexy when they're old.
We're looking for someone a little younger.
Face it, lady, we're younger and faster.
I can't fill up a space shuttle with geriatrics.
Getting old sucks.
Did you just call me old?
Sure, we're too old to change the world.
To build a really better world sometimes means having to tear the old one down.
You know, at my age, I only have one speed, breakneck.
Face it, girls. I'm older and I have more insurance.
And not that it matters, but I am 52 and I will rock this dress.
Look and learn, boys, because if you ask me, this is what cool is.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And Scott, I think we're good, and I'm open. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And my email's here. Please email me if you have any questions. The certificates are, the link is here for the certificate programs if you are interested. But we have to start here, and we have to start now. So thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much. And as Linda mentioned, we're just scratching the surface. You could easily have an entire course, a year-long course on all the dynamics of this. And I think to start with, I would say that one of the biggest trends in the questions being posed was sort of the impacts of COVID from a couple different perspectives. One is I guess the perspective of the numbers, because so many older people were impacted health-wise, and I think about 85% of the people that that passed away were of older age, and they're wondering if that had impacts on sort of the numbers that were presented. I think the other aspect to this is, I guess, things like you already mentioned, that it seems that COVID probably sped up this change in a lot of ways with the caregiving needs and things that sort of were accelerated because of COVID. But if you have any insights, I guess, in general about the impact of COVID overall.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually recently read, I'd say a couple months ago, that it did affect the shift, not significantly, but enough to be shared. And I can absolutely get those numbers for you. I don't have them with me now, but absolutely it did change the, I don't want to say the shift, but it did. The numbers and the older adults who have passed away because of COVID, it definitely, it changed it. And like I said, I did have those numbers, and I can get them to you guys.
So our next question comes from Ronald Pust. Ronald, if you would like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Could you see my question on in the chat?
I can read it if that would be helpful to you.
That would be better.
Sure. So what do you say to those who see the dependency burden, very old plus children, as insupportable by the working age adults who are mainly 18 to 65? Again, regarding Social Security, the ability to personally care for grandparents or other dependents, and is the birth dearth a major problem?
Caregiving, non-paid, I'll talk about non-paid caregivers, which are the family caregivers. I'm very concerned about the workforce, and I will talk to anybody who will listen to me about the need for the workforce to work with family caregivers. And like we have FMLA and, we have these different things, but the stress on family caregivers, the last numbers I heard that they're about 30% of family caregivers will pass away before the person they are caregiving for. And it could be due to stress, whatever, but we need to help the caregivers. We need to lobby, we need to work with the Caregiver Alliance to make change. I would say that is the key. I don't believe that the families 18 to 64, they don't find, there's a lot of research in caregiving, but they do not feel it's a burden to them. It is some people feel it's their obligation to care for a loved one. Some want to, their satisfaction, but the stress is the workforce, and we definitely need to do better. And if we do better in working with companies about family caregiving, hopefully we'll see better results, and that it's such a financial impact negatively when families are balancing work and caring for their loved ones.
Our next question comes from Stephen Bleicher, I believe. Stephen, if you'd like to talk about or ask your question, you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Yes, I'm very concerned about long-term care facilities. I have heard so many very, very dismaying stories about the quality of care being administered in long-term care facilities. I've been in healthcare since I moved here from the East Coast 18 years ago, and I can tell you for certain that there needs to be some kind of upgrade in each of the states in making sure that the workers that are hired are properly trained and they are continuously refreshed with training, and that their managers don't perceive the possibility that they are being burned out based upon the depressing people that they are witnessing and that they're trying to help. Can you see any improvement in that area?
You said it nicely, and that is my concern as well. As I said, most of my background in aging were in nursing homes and or assisted living. I did community services as well, but I agree with you. I would like to see more reviews of assisted living and nursing homes. I would absolutely advocate for more training. I am currently working with a few assisted livings and retirement communities on training their staff, and they are interested in coming to the non-credit or the community-based and the community-based certificate. And I would love to go to every assisted living and talk to them even about relationships and aging and mental health, especially. I have found a lot, and through my experience, that assisted living and nursing homes are not equipped to deal with mental health issues in older adults, and that it is so important, and we'll be seeing more of that. And so important, I developed a full semester class on mental health and aging because one, it's stigmatized, people don't know about it, but I agree with you. We need to do better, and we need to do more.
Our next question. Go ahead.
About caregiving. One of the things that I do, I teach healthcare, and I actually teach at Ollie. And the thing is, the most important aspect of caregiving is that the caregiver themselves pay less attention to their own health and only administer to the health of the less healthy spouse or friend whom they're caring for. This must be further emphasized to all, that once the caregiver has decided to fail themselves by not monitoring their own health, which is likely deteriorating because of the deterioration of their spouse, that now both the spouse and the caregiver are now both in jeopardy, and something has to be done to try and make it very, very apparent to the caregiver that they have to be extremely careful about their own selves. And yes, of course, they have to pay attention to the less healthy spouse, but don't forget themselves too.
Absolutely, Stephen. I cannot agree with you more. And absolutely, that is what I emphasize. And even the course is called Caring for the Older Adult and Self-Care for the Caregiver. That is the official catalog title. And we do talk about that. And we talk about, you know, being on the plane and who gets the oxygen mask first, and how, if we're not healthy, how can we take care of someone else? And Stephen, you're 100% correct.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Steve Myrick. Steve, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Well, I was just wondering if you were aware of any country or countries in the world that come close to the ideals that you would have for aging and the change in the demographics.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Like Sweden, Netherlands out there, they are doing great work and a lot of great dementia care. But Sweden is up top. I am very happy to see what they're doing. I even find Canada doing some really great work as well. Yeah, so if we want to look at those dynamics, they're great.
So it would probably be worth for our policymakers to be studying some other countries and see what kind of results they're having.
Yeah, again, well, and Japan too, they're doing great work with their older adults, a lot of home-based. But I find that we have to start looking at similar, like what's working programmatically, like service-wise, because there's dementia cities, they're called, and I love the idea that it's just not a memory care unit, but they're little villages, and they have a little bank, and they have a restaurant, and so folks with dementia are living in dementia villages. And so there's programmatic stuff going on that's phenomenal across the world. But then there are the funding, the economics that we have to look at too, and especially with our population. So we really have to start looking, I agree, across the world on what is working programmatically, what can we do for the economy as well as the services, and the quality. That for me is key. And like someone, I think it was Stephen mentioned before, the quality of care that our older adults deserve.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Irv Gottschalk, I believe. If you'd like to unmute yourself, Irv, and ask your question.
Yes. Let me just find it here. There were a couple of questions. One was with regard to Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel. He's been advocating that people over 75 should no longer receive aggressive, treatment for illnesses and just let nature take its course, I suppose. He claims he'll do this for himself. Is he doing a disservice by advocating about that?
I look at age is just a number. I'm not a fan of saying at age 70, if this happens, this happens. So I would look at more prognosis, if it's terminal, different factors versus just the age. Because yes, as we get older, there's some chronic disease, but again, I don't want to lump it into everyone over age of 70. You know, there are some risk factors, and age is often one of them, but it does not mean that we should dictate the outcome of their treatment pending on what it is defined by their age.
No, I would agree. His father lived into his 90s, so I think it's kind of interesting. My other question was with regard to your slides about caregiving and burdens and all that. My question goes to indirect caregiving, managing an older adult's finances, overseeing the quality of the direct caregiving. That too is a challenge, and I was wondering if there are any statistics on that.
Yeah, and another great question. And I have a colleague who teaches like law and policy in older adults, and talking about the care provider, the living will, and all that aspect of it, but necessary to have a backup in for anybody at any age to make sure that they have their proper medical power of attorney in place, just to make things transition more smoothly. Versus, I know a lot of people don't get all their paperwork in order until something happens. So I am also a strong advocate for any type of medical power attorney, any financial power attorney, and all that. Have that in place early on before something happens, if something were to happen, because it doesn't hurt to have it in place.
Well, what I'm thinking about is my wife with her father. All the paperwork was in place.
Okay.
But hiring caregivers, the quality is uneven.
Yes.
That's the burden I'm thinking about.
Yes. So you are hiring paid caregivers to come in to help?
Yes.
Yeah. Again, I agree. There is a shortage of caregivers. And I believe someone mentioned, they go in, it's not a glamorous job that some people feel, but it is, there is a shortage of caregivers in the United States. It's important to train them. It's important for organizations to have backups in place, that it does not affect the care recipient. And scheduling, I've heard many stories of, yes, there's different levels of care. One person will come in, the other person doesn't come in. You get to know a caregiver, but then they quit because, again, low paying jobs. I'm part of the Elder Alliance here in Tucson, and we have a direct care support action team just focusing on paid caregivers and trying to get paid caregivers interested in training for caregiving, as well as keeping them retention. Although the Elder Alliance does not hire, it's not a business, but we're training folks to be caregivers. But it is, and concerns are it's going to get worse before it gets better, just because of the demographics. Another piece we're looking at, a lot of folks are looking more at technology and how technology can help with caregiving. It's not as far advanced as I would see or I would like, but even I think Japan even have little robots, caregiver robots, like for socialization and for older adults to talk to. And it's very interesting, but I think we need to look at better technology to help with caregiving. Like it could be med management, what time is it to take their meds? Something beeps. On there, they have tracking and for dementia in case someone leaves the house. All of these things are important that we need to look into. And I don't think we're where we should be right now with technology or supporting caregivers, paid or unpaid.
Thank you very much.
Our next question comes from Darwin Stapleton. Darwin, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
You can read the question. Thank you.
Okay. As a researcher on aging, do you think the U.S. is willing to invest in services for an aging population, or just as happy to see them as expendable?
Oh, great question. Well, actually, I'm teaching faculty. I haven't done research in the last decade in aging. So I do not think that we feel, especially researchers in aging, we want, and my colleagues are focusing on healthy aging and what can we do, preventative measures even, and looking at quality of life versus quantity of life. I think that is key. We're seeing with the demographics, the quantity, and I do want to answer the very first question about COVID and life expectancy. So life expectancy did drop during COVID due to the significant number of deaths in older adults. So that has changed a little bit, but that's really the only thing that has changed, a couple of years for life expectancy. But going back to your question, people in this field want to be in this field. So as, like I said, my colleagues or anybody in the aging studies we're looking at quality and how we can do better as society. Now, if you're looking at economics or, different departments at different universities, I'm not too sure. Like Forbes said, spend money, take away money. They're focusing on the financial. I'm definitely focusing on the value of dignity and humanity in aging.
And I think Darwin had several other questions, but a good workforce related one is just his experience is that corporations would rather have less expensive, less skilled workers than seasoned, older, longtime workers. And he's wondering sort of about how we kind of work with that in a changing society.
Yeah, and that is also part of that dyad that some companies are wanting folks to retire. They say to get, new ideas coming in, get the old, like mandatory retirement, things like that. But it's true because of money. However, most or some of the CEOs and stuff are the ones who are aging out or hold those more management positions or high leadership positions. So yes, they cost more, but I don't know. I think that's part of the unique dyad of, again, institutional knowledge versus, like the history of the organization and how much value does that bring versus having someone younger come in that doesn't have that experience. For me, it would be great to have all 5 generations in any organization and company.
So I'm going to read this one because the person can't unmute themselves, but Diane Koser saying that it is one thing to say caregivers need to take care of themselves and another thing to see that happens due to extreme demands on the caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
A program was started in Gig Harbor, Washington to assist caregivers, and she volunteered for that program. And the role was to free the caregiver by staying with the patient, and it enabled the caregiver to shop for groceries, have lunch with a friend, get exercise, and it worked very well, she's saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen many, and we call it kind of in the field of respite care. And I want to encourage anyone and everyone who is a caregiver to look into respite care for themselves more so, and they will come in and care for your loved one 4 hours a week or different shifts, and that allows the caregiver some time to like go to the grocery store and get things done, that maybe even go to a movie, and if they just need to get away. So yep, respite care for caregivers is necessary.
Well, our hour and a half has flown by here, and there are tons of really amazing questions. So much, obviously, that this touches on discussions of the immigration policy and helping, with shortages of labor. As Ollie is a volunteer-run organization, or the example Diane brought up of volunteer programs to help people, as somebody in the sandwich generation who will be working a lot longer, what will the impact be on volunteerism and things like that? All just amazing things to dig into that I think could be like, again, an entire course. But we'll look through these questions and because I think there's a lot more, we could do on this subject for sure. And again, Linda, I really want to thank you for your time and again, the support of the psychology department in general for Osher and Ollie has been amazing. And parting words, Linda.
Just my email was on the slides, and I think if you put it in the chat, please email me with any other questions, or if there's anything that if you have an organization that you would want a presentation, let me know, because my goal is to spread the word and to have a multi-generational society be successful, and just do what we need to do the right thing for our older adults. So otherwise, that's it.
And I will drop that email into the chat right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we have them, and thank you again so much for this and for all our attendees, and everyone have a great week out in Ollie land. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.